What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Go Home Ryan. Today we are watching the Supergirl official teaser trailer. This is the second movie in the James Gunn DC Cinematic Universe, or DC Extended Universe. It was the DCEU last time. I don't know if they're continuing with that. So either way, the James Gunn universe. Excited for this one. Superman 1. Superman, the first Superman movie that came out in this universe was a really good. It felt like a return to Superman and who Superman was, like the fabric of Superman. He was goofy. He had the underwear over the pants, the same way old Superman used to, as opposed to the Zack Snyder Superman, who was just like a full like bodysuit that was just like one piece, and we get so much more personality from this universe, and I think that's what James Gunn does well. If you've seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, he does that really well in all of those movies. And so and then the new Suicide Squad movie that came out that James Gunn directed, we get a lot of that too in there. So like excited really to get back into the James Gunn DC universe and revisit this with Supergirl. We saw Supergirl at the end of the first Superman movie. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but excited to get into this. Yeah, you're not here for me, you're here for the trailer, so let's just go ahead and get into it without further ado. My boy Crypto. Insane.
You managed to get most of it on the paper this time. Good job, buddy.
I have to go back and watch the end credit scene from Superman, but I believe at the end of the Superman movie, when we do see Supergirl, she is about to babysit Crypto and is about to dog sit Crypto, and so that's why Crypto's in this. Well, we always want more Crypto, so I'm not really upset about that. Shout out to more Crypto. Crypto deserves to be in more movies. Honestly, I hope he gets his own like Crypto in the Super Pets movie, like that DC animated movie. Either way, it would be animated again, but in CGI this time. Anyway, let's go.
Cars are out. Hereby declare the 23 will be the best year yet.
I think what I love about this is that she's messy. And so much of your 20s is a messy experience, and so much of your 20s is, and I imagine it's probably even more of that as a superhero. So much of your 20s is just like hard to reconcile with, and you're like just really trying to figure out where you exist in the world and where your place is. And so, and then you transition in your 30s and kind of figure that out some. So we get like that juxtaposition here, right? Where you have this like young 20s Supergirl who's just like, listen, I'm here to party and have a good time. That's like what it is, right? We're gonna have a good time doing this, and versus like your more polished Superman, because he's a little bit older. He's has a different set of morals. He was raised in a different way, and yeah, he's like more established. He has a career as opposed to like party Supergirl, who's at the bar and is like 23. I had my Taylor Swift 22 year, and I'm in the 23 now. And shout out to Supergirl for that. That's this is fun. And I think James Gunn recognizes that, which makes it all the better.
Let's be honest, babe, it's not a very high bar to clear.
I didn't know any of you were still alive. What was it like to lose everything in a day?
Krypton didn't die in a day. The gods are not that kind.
And so she spent way more time on the planet of Krypton, on her home planet, than Superman did. And so I imagine, we see her. She also, in the party girl phase, also kind of feels like a bit of an alcoholic, right? We kind of get some of that. Or she's dealing with some sort of grief there. And so I think it's interesting too, like us navigating her grief with her, and having to like watch her navigate her grief. Like I wonder, like, what does it do to a person? And we can all guess here. What does it do to a person when you lose everything that you've ever loved, and you lose it slowly and meticulously, but it just happens and it disappears on you? And how does that make you interact with the world, right? And I think we're getting some of that here in her personality, which is interesting.
Krypton didn't die in a day.
And I think James Gunn does that really well. He does that like slow descent into grief and madness really well.
The gods are not that kind. This does not look like this is gonna end well. For you guys.
Do others on your planet have powers like you?
Was that Alan Cumming?
No, it's a pretty small group of 2.
No.
What Superman like?
Wait a second. Hold on now. You're not going to skirt past that. Yeah, we're getting my boy. I think that's who I think it is. That's my boy Jason Momoa, who's been lobbying to play Lobo for the very longest, and I think we're finally getting it. Jason Momoa as Lobo. Listen, well deserved. Way better fit than Aquaman. Honestly speaking, shout out to him for playing Aquaman. I thought he did a great job as Aquaman. Certainly, I think it was a different take on Aquaman. I appreciated it. I'm not upset about his portrayal of Aquaman. But if there was ever a role in the DC extended universe, and James Gunn's DC universe that was made for Jason Momoa, it was Lobo. That was who he needed to be from the very beginning. And so I'm glad that we get that. He's got a little cigar in his mouth. He's going to be, this is going to be great. This is going to be fantastic. I think he's going to do a fantastic job in this role.
What Superman like?
He sees the good in everyone. And I see the truth. Right. Okay. June 26th. Listen, what I really appreciate, before 4 more seconds. Okay. All right. Oh, and they got a little comic that's coming out with it. Shout out to DC for doing that. No, this might not even be a little comic that comes with it. This might just be a Supergirl comic. Either way. So, what I appreciate about the DC universe and about what's happening right now and the way James Gunn is treating the DC universe is that, like, he's not starting from scratch. He recognizes that it needs to be rebooted, right? We all recognize that it needs to be rebooted. It was headed nowhere. Zack Snyder in charge at the wheel. Like, he's a great director in his own right, but, like, certainly I think he just didn't necessarily know what to do with the breadth of work that he was being presented in a way that James Gunn definitely has, like, a full, like, masterful handle on the work and on the universe and on superhero movies just in general. I think he has a style, and that style is coming through in the works that we've seen from him already, and it's a style that we enjoy and can consume easily. But what I appreciate that he's doing is he recognizes, like, we're already mid-game, right? Marvel has been in the game for 20 years making successful hits, and just hit after hit after hit. Actually, not quite 20 years, but we're almost there. 3 years from now it'll be 20 years. Just making hit after hit after hit. Yeah, they had the blunders prior to the first Iron Man movie, but once they did the reboot, it worked for them. And they established the world of superheroes, and we were right alongside them, but now we've kind of lost our gate, and we have to start all over. And starting all over, I think we're recognizing here that we don't necessarily need to start from scratch, right? This doesn't need to be an entirely new superhero universe where we're reinventing the concept of the superhero. We don't have to do that, but instead we can reapproach this from the middle. And I appreciate that we're, like, entering in the story in the middle of this happening, right? There's so many stories and so many narratives that we navigate just on a daily basis, like books and with other media, where we enter in the middle of the story. Things have already happened. We're in the middle of the chaos, right? I appreciate that we're in the middle of the chaos. It sets up the world so much better, because then you can just work with rules that you've already pre-established in your mind and just have the audience catch up to you. And, because we have some familiarity with Superman, Batman, Supergirl, all of these heroes, we can do our catching up, right? We've already caught up. Like, it's not that hard of a jog, as opposed to if we had started off from the very beginning, then they have to reestablish all these rules, and they have to reestablish how the universe works, then they have to reestablish humanity's engagement with heroes, and it just changes the whole dynamic of everything. So shout out to James Gunn for the way that he's handled this. I think Supergirl is going to be really great too, and I also appreciate too that they're just, like, as far as, like, cameos and all that stuff go, they're just, like, very much like back to back to back to back. We're headed that way. That was something that Angry Black Nerd said, shout out to Andre in his, post recap of the trailer, where he was saying, I just appreciate that the cameo happened, and then, we're getting
the Supergirl movie right afterwards, right? And I agree with him. Like, you know, I'm very much happy that we're just getting the continuation, and it just feels immediate as opposed to, you know, some older series where, you know, we get a cameo and then the cameo leads nowhere, or we get a cameo and we don't see that person for 5 movies down. And it built up the anticipation for that movie, but it also kind of led us down this path where it's like, you know, hey, maybe we just won't see a payoff, or maybe this just doesn't mean anything, and we're just throwing this in here just to throw this in here. And that's, you know, I appreciate James Gunn for paying attention and for being willing to lead us down a path and then show us where that path leads immediately. And so shout out to them. I'm excited for this movie, but you let me know in the comments what you think. How'd you feel about the trailer? How do you feel about Supergirl as a character? How do you feel about the direction in which they're taking this version of Supergirl? How do you feel about James Gunn, his handling of the DC Extended Universe? We can talk about that in the comments. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And please check out my latest movie reaction. Until next time, it's been Go Home Ryan, y'all. Later, Gators.